Hi, can you really sell at a higher price with higher customer preference? Can you really know when you need to discount objectively? Is there an objective way to develop a discounting and price exception system? Is there a way to know beyond gut feel what your price should be? Yes to all of those questions. And this video is going to show you the basic approach of how it works. Now, there's a lot of training behind this, so I'm going to just give you the high level how value works and how to measure it objectively. And call me if you need to get deeper into any of this. Also, go ahead and feel free to look at some of my other videos that talk a little bit more about the questioning and the discovery strategy behind discovering the monetary value of your value. I think you'll see one in the identify pain versus selling value is a good place to start when you talk about understanding the dollar value of your value. So customers decide and they make pricing decisions and whether or not they'll pay pricing decisions based on comparison, and they really use silly ways of narrowing the choices down to the final two, and then they make a lot more careful decisions using the last two options. And so we harness that and we try to use this approach, which very much mimics the natural customer choice. So you don't have to train your customer on a non-intuitive way of thinking about your price. And so here's that very common heuristic decision-making rule that customers use. They go to the next best choice or the other choice that they're considering. I'm going to call it the next best because what you sell is the best and the only other choice is the next best. And so it has a price. So this is the price of the next best choice. So starting with that price, oftentimes your competitors will have some advantage that you don't have, which means that if they sell the value of those advantage and your salespeople or you don't sell those advantage, then what can actually happen is the competitors advantage carries the day. And so the value price of your option is their price minus their advantage. So you could actually have to discount your way out of your trouble, out of this kind of trouble, if you don't sell your value. So hopefully you are able to, and by engaging with me, you'll be able to talk about your advantages. So if you've got some direct advantages, think of if you have advantage, you have a product that lasts longer. Say your piece of equipment lasts 20% longer on average than the competitive piece of equipment. You should be able to charge up to 20% more for your equipment based on that long life. And so that is just the dollars per year is a direct advantage. However, there are other advantages, and just because this is smaller on my diagram here doesn't mean it's smaller. Oftentimes these are the big ones, and these are the ones that most sellers ignore, but they're often the most important ones. These are indirect advantage. So if indirect advantage. So this is the dollar value of the indirect outcomes. So when your product lasts longer, there's some other things that happen. You don't have to replace it as often. You don't have to put new floor space in. You don't have to install it again. You don't have the business disruption. You don't have to train your people on the new year's worth, the new model of equipment. You don't have to build processes around that equipment. You don't have to change any of the processes around the other parts of the company around that equipment. The maintenance cost goes down, blah, 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 right? So there's a ton of indirect costs that people tend to ignore. I last 20% longer, and so they go for this advantage when this one is actually probably even bigger. if you know your customer's business, if you have the business acumen to understand all of the implications that your differentiated advantages give elsewhere in the company. Then there's a third one, and that is personal advantage. And this one can be tiny, can be zero, and the customer will just use it as a tie break, or it can actually be huge. And I've seen cases where it does all of those things, where it's been all of those. But the idea is when it lasts longer, the person who decides to, in your favor, to buy, like the department manager who decides on you versus the less expensive next best choice, they have a reputational advantage. It makes them look like they've made a better decision. It puts them in line for a promotion. I had one customer, I saved them $78,000 in estate planning costs on a commercial real estate loan for their company. And so it was, you know, something buried in the basement of the terms and conditions, but I saved the owner of that business $78,000 in a future estate planning cost. And so that ended up breaking the tie in my favor. So the size of these things can vary, but the idea is there's competitor advantages, direct advantages, indirect, and personal advantages. And all of the numerical values of these are ones that I want you and your salespeople to collect those numerical dollar estimates of those advantages from the customer. That way, the customer has validated all these numbers. And that way, when you do that, you've got a really good idea of full value or the full value price. And why do we call that full value? Why don't we necessarily charge that as the price? Well, a couple reasons. First of all, every one of these is our estimates of the customer's perception. The ideal is that you talk to the customer about every one of these value drivers, the impact of those value drivers and their dollar estimate of those. And you can't always get all the dollar values of all the different value drivers. And so there's some slop, some estimate built into this. So if you charge this full value price based on assuming that this estimate is great, then you could be in trouble. Now let's just say that down here is your walkaway price, your cost plus minimum acceptable profit price. So now you have an acceptable price band all the way through here. Full value price is if you take all of this value and put it in your pocket. You're basically charging them and taking all of the value pie for yourself and giving none of the value pie to the customer. That's why this is also called the indifference price. They should be indifferent, assuming that all these are correct, they should be indifferent between this price for your product and this price for your competitor. They shouldn't care. Theoretically, if this was all done perfectly, 1 cent less than this full value price, they should prefer you by 1 cent. So you might want to drop off of that price to increase the amount of preference, or to increase the discount resistance. Remember, this is all based off of plus and minus off of the price of the next best choice. If this competitor decides they're gonna shift their price down, they're gonna discount, now all of this math shifts down with it. So now if I'm going to discount this much, I better have a discount, or have come off of that full value price by more than that so that it is discount proof for my competitors. They can't discount their way back into having a full value, a value premium. So you might want to have something for discount proof, something for the imprecision based on this estimate, and something just because they're a great customer or you want to increase the value pie. And so you get to choose where you want to price this. But if this was your value price or your minimum acceptable price, anything above this is a price premium. And every dollar of that price premium is a profit dollar because your costs didn't change. Every dollar of discount is a dollar off your bottom line, not just off your top line. So this is a really important thing. Discounting dollars are profit dollars. And every dollar that you can add is a dollar of profit that you're adding to your bottom line, as well as to your top line. So this isn't there just for a custom priced product. What happens if you have a catalog pricing and this is your standard pricing, or this is your standard pricing and you're allowed to discount down to this floor, and this is your book pricing? And the idea is now when the customer asks you to discount off of this standard price and you have built all this value up to here, it's an easy conversation. And so the sales negotiation is, look, everybody in your company has done this math. We've done this. We've got these advantages, these advantages, these advantages. Your estimates of the value of these advantages are these dollars, which is part of why I want you to get the customer estimate of those advantages. Mr. Customer, this is the value of this product to you, and this was my price, and you're asking me to discount down to here? Are you serious? So if you have sold the value early through the entire selling process, go look at the time value of selling value video. But the idea is, if you've built all of this value throughout the selling process so that the value to the customer is up here, your book price no longer needs to be discounted from. You have built insurance. And even if the competitor drops their price, you still have insurance well above your book price if you have gone to the trouble of building all the value that your product offers. I hope this helps. Call me if you've got any questions anytime. Reach out to me at Market Bounty Consulting, or go to my website, bountyconsulting.com, or of course, get the book, Radical Value. Thanks. I hope this was helpful. Have a great day.